And let me start by talking a little bit about recruitment, which is what I spent, and probably you all spent a lot of time in your clubs doing. Begin by finding out who may be interested in joining. So the key word to me about recruitment, 3 words: you go find them. Now, I'm not going to use recruiting. I'm going to say, as my book does, stop recruiting, start attracting, because attraction draws a person toward membership. 3 key words: they find you. Let's just stop there for a minute. Recruitment means you go find them. You search all over town for membership potential. But when it's attraction, they're going to find you. Now, if I was with you today, I'd ask you 2 big questions. One is a recruitment question, and that is, why do you want new members? Again, if I was sitting with you and I asked you to raise your hand and respond to that, I think I'd come up with basically 3 things that you'd tell me about why your club wants new members. You'd probably say, gee, new members bring us new ideas, new service projects, new foundation, new dollars. Or maybe you'd say, we do a lot of work. We're a service club, so we need more help. And maybe because you're very much fellowship driven as a Rotary Club, you'd say, I want more friends in my club. So why do you want new members? I think you'd come up with new ideas, more help, more friends. But if I ask you the other question, that is the attraction question, it would go like this: why do they want us? Now, I know you're a service organization, therefore you do a lot of service, but you may be surprised to find out when I talk to particularly young people, millennials, about their attraction toward Rotary, service comes in as almost number 5. So let's look at the first 4 that they always tell me. Number 1, they want a network. They've heard that Rotary clubs are the movers and shakers in a community, and they're new in their careers, and they want to get to know a lot of people, and networking is still very important. It was to us when we were heavily into our learning the business when we started out in our careers. But to the millennials particularly, networking is number 1. Number 2, they want a social organization. They want a chance to make new friends, and friends among those people who are, as they will tell you, involved in their communities. Number 3, they want to learn something new. And that's why when they come to a meeting, they want a speaker, maybe the Costco manager, maybe a insurance gentleman, maybe a lady who runs the real estate firm. They want to learn something new at every meeting. And number 4, they want to have some fun. And that's Rotary for all of us. But they're telling you, number 1, they want a network. Number 2, they want social. Number 3, they want to learn something new. Number 4, they want fun. And lastly, of course, they want to do service. Interesting thing about the young folks that we try to attract, they already do a lot of volunteer work. They've got their church, they've got their schools, they've got if their parents are ready, they've got kids' involvements with sports and things like that. So they're not short on an opportunity to do service. But unique is unique. Now, I have 3 keys I want to share with you about attraction. The idea of attraction. Number 1 is people are interested in what benefits them. Now, you may think to yourself, gee, that sounds selfish, but it's not, because you and I only have so much time each week to devote to anything, particularly volunteer work. And they're saying, what do I get when I give? So it may be good at one of your meetings to just talk about what are the benefits of belonging to Rotary, which is a nice way of saying, what do they get when they join? The benefits are important to all of us. Attraction key number 2 is tell them the benefits. You know, during that first initial talk to a new prospective member, I think we need to share what values that person receives from becoming a Rotarian. If you're like me, I always think about talking about at least what we do not what we give. So the benefits are still important. Attraction key number 3 to me is understand that today's prospective members all go shopping. You know, it's interesting when I was president of the club in Elk Grove, California. We had a gentleman sitting at one of the tables in the meeting, and he was brand new. He had first time with us to see how we're doing and what we are all about. And I said, "Sir, is this the first time you've been to our Rotary Club?" He said, "Oh, no." He says, "I've been to 5 clubs." And he named off the clubs. He named the Sacramento Club, the North Sacramento Club, and he mentioned all of them. I said, "Why in the world did you go to 5 clubs?" He said, "I wanted to find out which one fits me, which one has the kind of values that I treasure. I want to see what the people are like." And, you know, more than ever before, people are, remember how you and I first joined Rotary? We joined the club nearest to where we lived or where we worked. Today, the people are actually going to shop clubs more than ever before. Have you ever shopped your own club? Wouldn't it be interesting to be a mystery shopper, to walk in the door at your breakfast or lunch or dinner meeting and just see what's going on? See how long it takes someone to say hello, to shake your hand, to invite you to sit down at a table. Not too long ago, I had a club, which, by the way, I will not mention their name, but I'll tell you what happened. I walked in, I was the speaker. There was a very busy club, a lot of people, but I saw a seat at a table and I went over to take that seat. And somebody said, "No, that's John's seat." You can't sit there. I thought, this is going to be an interesting evening. But you know, that's what I mean by shopping your own club, is make sure that when a new member, particularly, in fact, all of your members walk in, somebody's there to say hello, to welcome them, to thank them for attending. You know, I think I need to understand that all prospective members have expectations. Think about an expectation. Many of you are in probably customer service. And when I say expectations, I know what you're saying. You say, yes, we've got to meet their expectations. And I'm going to look you in the eye and say, no, you have to exceed their expectations. And that's an interesting thought. Now, in my introduction, you heard that I travel about 100 days a year, and I'm on an airplane and in hotels a lot, of course, speaking to different groups. But I was in Chicago last year and staying at the Grand Hyatt on Michigan Avenue, beautiful hotel. Now, what was my expectation when I went to that Hyatt hotel? I expected them to be warm and friendly and clean and luxurious, and they were. So my expectation was met, but I had a gentleman in a suit and tie, and he had a Hyatt badge on one side of his coat, and the other side had this big round button that said 10 and 5. I had no idea what that meant, 10 and 5. So he happened to be getting in the elevator with me. So when we were in the elevator, I said, "Sir, what does that 10 and 5 mean?" He's at a Hyatt hotel. And I'm so embarrassed, he said, so embarrassed. At a Hyatt hotel, 10 feet from a guest, you smile. And 5 feet from a guest, you say, "Good morning, sir. Good morning, ma'am." And we were caught by corporate not doing it. So for a whole month, we have to wear these badges that say 10 and 5. And everybody's asking me about it. And that's exactly why I was so embarrassed about it. Now, sometimes I'm going to pick on Motel 6 for a minute, because when I was in Peoria, Illinois, that was the only hotel that was available. But what's my expectation when I walk into a Motel 6? Well, I'll tell you what it is. You know what it is. I would be unhappy if they hadn't left the light on for me. Isn't that their ad all the time? They'll leave the light on for you. So they did. And I was fine with that hotel too. You know, I'm looking to attract people, particularly new members, who have 3 things. One is a business attitude. Now, you may not always think of your club as a business club, but that's how it started. And that's really in its own way what we are in many ideas of business. Now, I know you have classification on your badge. Your classification is generally what you did, even if you retired. Quite often it will say attorney, or it will say, real estate. Having a business attitude, I want. Number 2, I want you to have a service attitude. You got to be willing to do something. And 3, I want you to have enough time to attend meetings, to come to various service projects. So 3 things: business attitude, service attitude, and enough time. I don't want, and this is kind of funny to say, a warm body. You know, some people are just warm bodies. They'll attend a meeting once in a while. They may come to a service project once in a while. They're a good warm body. I want Rotarians who are willing to give the time and work in my club. I don't want just a checkbook. Sometimes you get people in who say, oh, I'll write you a check for that, but they never show up for meetings. They never show up for service projects. So I don't want warm bodies, and I don't want checkbooks. I want people who are willing to do something to help the club at all times. I'm suggesting right now that you want to define exactly the kind of person that you want to attract. Define the kind of person you want to attract. I'm going to give you 4 possibilities and see if these fit your desires. 1, I want young people. Now, when I say young, I'm talking 20s and 30s and 40s, because we know our average membership age is probably over 40, maybe more 50, and some clubs maybe 60 is the average age. So I want to attract some young members. I also want sometimes family-oriented people, people with kids and people with spouses and people who are a little different than just a single person. I also want, and looking at the number of people attending today, you have plenty of women in your clubs, but I want women in my club. And I want boomers. I love boomers. You know, think about boomers for a minute. They're retiring at the rate of 10,000 a day until the year 2030. That's crazy. Now, we keep hearing about the lack of young members. Now, I said how young? 20s, 30s, and 40s are what I'm looking for. Now, you all know who started Rotary, Paul Harris. You know it was 1905, but do you know how old he was when he started Rotary? 36 years old. And he had 3 fellow attorneys who helped him start this. They were 38, 40, and 36. What was Rotary when it started? A young man's business organization. Women weren't yet in Rotary, so it wasn't women, but it was a young man's, since he was 36 years old. The problem with young people, particularly as prospective members, is they don't know anything about Rotary. Now, I'm a Starbucks guy. You can see by my cup right here, and I spend, prior to COVID, when we could go into Starbucks and sit down and have a mocha. I was doing that one day about a year ago, and there was a young man I was talking to. And the nice thing about sitting at Starbucks is you can talk to each other, even though they got their smartphones out and their computers out. They still carry on conversations with each other. And I said to him, I said, sir, what do you know about Rotary? He looked at me and he said, is it like one of them Kiwanis, lions, one of those kinds of things? In other words, he knew nothing about Rotary. And that's been my experience with young people. They don't really know what we do and what we are in Rotary. If you're trying to invite young people, then the types of projects, the service events, need to sometimes be altered to attract them. They love green, environmental, community gardens, kinds of things, anything environmental that would interest them. And if you're trying to attract more family-oriented people, then goodness sakes, make sure that the entire family is available at times. Maybe the kids can attend one of your meetings. Maybe the spouse is involved with various functions. Even though they don't become members, they still feel like a part of that Rotary Club. More women. I was excited to find out recently that in America's major corporations, right now, we're at 50% of the CEOs are women. Now, why isn't Rotary then 50% women, and should be? And it's probably a goal we should make, that at least half of our membership could be women. Boomers are hitting, as I said, the retirement age at 10,000 per day retiring. You know, there's something interesting about retirement. We look so forward to it, but yet once we retire, we've lost a whole lot of what was important to us, primarily the people in the office, the ones we may have griped about and now we miss. And I think Rotary will give all retired folks, all boomers particularly, a chance to do something again with meaning in their life, because you may be feeling a miss of that. It's important to define, in my mind, the kinds of groups that you want to attract. And I'm looking at groups such as I talked about, family-oriented, young and boomers and women. It's important because you attract each of those groups a little differently. In other words, you want to tailor your attraction methods to the groups. Now, take a look at your membership in your club. And how would you define your current members? Probably going to define them as being a little older than the groups I'm talking about right now. Don't know how you feel about diversity and about gender and all those kinds of things in your club. But certainly what you're lacking is what you want to start attracting, of course. Or are you just seeking to attract more of the same? Maybe. Not wrong, but certainly not a variety of membership which would help your club, I think. Now, where can you attract? I'll tell you what you're not very good at, because I'm not either. Attracting my friends. It's an interesting thing, isn't it, that you don't ask your friends to come to Rotary Club even as a guest. And you know why? You're a little bit afraid they're going to say no. You're going to be a little embarrassed if they turn you down. So the easiest way to avoid that embarrassment is don't ask them. But you know what? You know why your friends are so good? They're just like you. Isn't that true? Your friends are more like you than different than you, so they'd make perfect Rotarians. Number two, I hope that many of you are in the Chamber of Commerce in your town. I love the Chamber of Commerce as a recruiting tool, I should say attracting tool, which it is, to Rotary, because those are all business people. I love going to the luncheons and the dinners, and particularly going to the ribbon cuttings. That is the brand new places opening in town. Because you know what it is? Those are brand new people in town, brand new business people, and they need us. They need to be involved in all the things that Rotary does. We'll help their business and we'll help our club, both. And local businesses. Now today it's only 2 o'clock here, so I have time to do 5 things this afternoon. One is to go get my cleaning at the cleaners. Another is go to the bank. A third one to go to Home Depot. And then my wife has 2 items on her honey-do list that she wants me to take care of. But you know what happens? When I walk into those businesses, I know the owner. I know the manager. I work hard to make a relationship with those people. It was so funny because a couple of years ago, we had a brand new bank open in town. It was called Union Bank. And I knew about them because when I lived in Southern California, that was my bank, and we didn't have a branch up here. So they opened up, and I walked in almost that first day, and I saw Sarah, and I said, Sarah, you're the manager here, right? Yes, Bill. And she had my card, so she knew my name. And I said, why aren't you in Rotary? And she said, oh, I don't have time. I got to get this branch going and all this. So, okay. Every week I went to the bank. Every time I walked into that bank, I saw Sarah and I said, Sarah, Rotary. She hated me. I yelled it every time at her. You know, she's now the treasurer in that club and has been secretary as well. In other words, what I'm suggesting is when someone says no, it doesn't mean no most of the time. It means not yet. So I'm going to work on that. And I think in every case, when I walk into a business, I always tell them, now let me stop right there for a minute. I don't talk about Rotary. I talk about what Rotary does. I'll talk to the manager of Home Depot about what we're doing at the senior center, what we're doing at the community garden. Or if I'm talking to somebody in the bank, I talk about what we do with this and that. I talk about what we do. And what they always say is, whoa, you do all that stuff in your club? Yeah. Okay. The other is your place of worship, your church, your temple, your synagogue. Now, if any of you are ministers out there or leaders of a faith, you're going to get upset with what I say. Sunday morning, I'm sitting at church and I'm looking around that church for future Rotarians. I mean, goodness sakes, I see John over here and I say, I'm going to talk to John at the coffee pot after service today. And I'm going to tell John what we do, not about Rotary, but about what the club is doing. And sure enough, I'm pretty good at picking up some people from my church to come into Rotary. The same thing with nonprofit organizations. Many of you are on the boards for various nonprofits. Again, it could be a PTA board, it could be the senior center board, it could be any kind of a board. But let me tell you something. Your fellow board members, every one of them, are potential Rotarians. They already have in their heart that service ethic that's so important in Rotary. Social media. If you're following at all my podcasts that I have every week or my blog that I put on Facebook every week, I just finished a whole series about social media because social media is so important in Rotary. Both Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, those are all important things. You know who they're important with? The young potential prospects, because they live on their smartphone and they're looking at Facebook. They're looking at tweets that come out. You know why Twitter is so important? Twitter allows you to send 280 characters and you do it every week to announce who the speaker is going to be. So you say, we have the manager of the Costco store coming this week at our Rotary Club. And in 280 characters, you can send that message out and you're sending it out to everybody, but the young people are listening to it and hearing it and going, ooh, I want to go. They don't care about Rotary now. They will hear about what the manager has to say of the Costco store. But when you get them into Rotary Club for the meeting, then you work on them, of course. And the last one, of course, is, as I said before, Starbucks, because I spend a lot of time when the COVID passes and we get back to sitting down. I sit down with lots of people and I talk all about what we do in Rotary. Now, I can't look at all your websites, but I wish I could, because I'll tell you, I'd be a little nervous when I look at your website about the club, because that website is the most important vehicle you have for sharing what you do. But I hope that you feature the speaker each week in there. I hope their pictures in there. I hope their backgrounds in there. I hope the topic they're going to talk about, because that's an attraction tool. I hope it's up to date. LinkedIn, very important. LinkedIn is a business tool. If you don't know LinkedIn, just take the time to Google LinkedIn sometime, because Rotary even has their own LinkedIn page on, a page on LinkedIn. Instagram, for all your pictures on Instagram. Again, that's what the young people look at, is Instagram. And your newsletter is very important too. And I hope that it's not only in print, but it's a digital newsletter as well. The young folks don't know how to handle a piece of paper, but they certainly know how to handle Google. 3 final hints. 1, don't invite any of those prospects to a meeting. They don't need one more meeting. Invite them to have lunch with you at the Rotary Club. Just don't tell them who's going to be there. Just say, I want you to have lunch with me. Oh, we're going to meet over here at the, and name the restaurant. And by golly, it's also the Rotary Club meeting that day. I'm teasing you, but the meeting is not the important part. The important part is having lunch or breakfast or dinner with that particular member. And you're going to buy them dinner, I hope. And number 2, hint, don't talk about polio. Don't talk about babies dying in Africa. Don't talk about any of those things. Talk about what you do in your town, because that's when people are going to say, whoa, you do that right here. You do it at our senior center. You do it at our food bank. You do our community garden. Wow. Then when you get them as members, then you talk about polio, and then you talk about babies dying in Africa and all those kinds of things that we're so good at in Rotary. And thirdly, if someone says you've invited them to be your guest for lunch at the Rotary Club, and they say, no, Bill, I'm going to try to be there. Whoa. I look them right in the eye and said, no, you're not going to try. I'm going to pick you up at 11:45, and I'm going to take you with me, because that works out so much better. Because when someone says they're going to try, you know what that means? They're not going to be there. So you got to pay attention. Now, that was a lot of information on attraction. Do you want to throw any spitballs or anything at me? But you can ask me questions if you'd like to, and I'll certainly try to answer them. Okay, yes.
Yeah,
that age group belongs to Rotaract. Yes, you do. And I'll tell you something about Rotaract. That's been a number one use of attracting Rotarians in. And we have a number of clubs now that are using Rotaract as Rotarians. In other words, we're going to both Rotaract meetings as members, and we're going to have them come to our meetings as well. So I agree with you. I don't want to hurt Rotaract by inviting the 20s and 30s in, but I want to make sure they know, because too often Rotaractors do not come into Rotary. I have the same problem with I don't know if you all have a young professionals club in town or a 2030 club. They're wonderful people. They do service, but they never quite get into my Rotary clubs unless I invite them. So we end up buying Rotaractors lunch or dinner at a club meeting and to get them to see. Okay. How to pick up a prospect for a Zoom meeting. Oh, there's one. Okay. I think the invitation to me, I've had pretty good success with Zoom meetings. And I've had, as I said the other day, we had one that had almost 40, 45 people at it. We sent a personal printed meeting invitation to the Zoom meeting, just like it was a real meeting. And that got me more people in. So I think how you invite the people, both a phone call, both a email message, and then I also send a little card in the mail, even though it cost me what it was postage these days. Okay, Tony says, what advice do you have on attracting members when many clubs are meeting virtually on Zoom? I'm a little worried about attracting people back into our lunch and breakfast and dinner meeting after Zoom, but I shouldn't be, because my biggest problem is getting them to attend Zoom. That's the issue. I think so many people are afraid of Zoom or don't know a lot about Zoom. So I don't think I have a lot of advice, because I'm not, haven't been real good, but I worry more about getting them back into my meetings as soon as this thing is over. Okay, let's see. We are finding that the convenience of Zoom meetings is very appealing. I agree. We have averaged one new member monthly since the beginning of COVID last March. Fantastic. Good, good. I have noticed on my Zoom meetings that I am attracting people. I have no idea who they are. I see their face, and they're exactly what you said. They're prospects coming in, because it is not threatening to them as much as coming. And you know what? You're not going to like this necessarily, but so many of the things that we do that turn off the young members, such as the fines, such as the singing songs from the 1930s, and those things, we don't do those things on Zoom. And I think that's a good thing. I'm picking on what we all love to do, but it makes it hard sometimes. Are younger members looking for mentors too? Oh, goodness sakes, yes, absolutely. And we do work in one of my clubs. I'm in a club right now called Passport, and you may have heard of Passport. Passport only meets every so often, doesn't meet every week. Can either meet once a month or every other week. And we assign every new member to another member, and that's a mentor. Particularly the young ones will pick up for sure somebody. And we try very carefully to pick a similar field. If he's an attorney, we try to find an attorney. We try to match people up so they speak the same language. Okay, Jenny Ann, Amy, got children of Rotarians seem to be good prospects as well. Yes, exactly right, for sure. And that's where your even the high school kids that are in Interact, even though we sometimes slip away from the Rotaractors because we invite the kids who are Interactors to come right on into Rotary when they are in college. But
all right. Well, Bill, thank you so much for joining us all the way from beautiful California.
Yes,
we really appreciate your presentation, and many of us have enjoyed your book.
Thank you.
You've certainly left us with a lot to think about around attraction and expectations. And I really believe we still have much to do. So we will be working on that.